Let's go inside. We'll talk to Bill right now.
Hey everybody, I'm Bill Wheeler, and this is Wheelhouse Garage at 1414 Portola Avenue in Livermore. It's a vintage motorcycle dealership. We do all types of vintage bikes, usually pre-71 European, and also consign and broker, almost anything vintage.
We've got two bikes here that look kind of familiar to me that belong to a buddy of mine.
Yeah, both of these bikes here are currently in the Brad Lackey collection, and we're looking for new homes for them. This is a 1985 CR500. Fantastic bike, fired up yesterday, sounds great, runs great. This is a 2005 Suzuki, so Brad's modern motocross bike, if you will. This one's also available. Information's on the website. And this one actually comes with that awesome Suzuki dealer sign as well. This bike right here is a 1944 BSA WD M20. So a military issue 500 single. They were cranking out 1,000 a week in Birmingham during World War II. This is one of the bikes from that era, and it was purchased recently by a local guy in Livermore, and he's been riding it, so I just got it back in for a checkup, make sure everything is sorted nicely. And although we've got a lot of full-size bikes here, I've also got some minis available, like this stunning 1975 Honda MR50. 3-speed with a clutch, a real classic. It's called the Baby Elsinore, and this was a really cool kids bike in the mid-70s. They only made this bike for 2 years. This is the silver tank version, which is, you don't see that often. These are amazing bikes. I know a lot of people probably remember them from their childhood. My son, I actually just got one very similar to this for my son, who's 6 years old, and he's having a great time with it. So this is a fantastic bike, ready for display, or you can ride it if you'd like. This bike is here on consignment. It is available on the website. The motor is a 66 T100 motor. It's got a 4-plug head, ARD mag, bunch of goodies, and this is full-on ready to race in a Cheney frame. This is a nickel-plated Cheney frame. The frame's actually from the early 90s. Lida tank, CZ hubs, alloy fenders, ready to go.
So how'd you get into these old bikes, Bill? You're a young guy, and you seem to be riding bikes that are a whole lot older than you are.
Yeah, totally. I've been into bikes my whole life. My dad surprised the family with a set of dirt bikes when I was 10. I started riding there. We went to Carnegie every weekend, and that's where the whole love of motorcycles started. As an adult, my wife's uncle actually gave me a 1974 Sportster, and the transmission was stuck. I took it home, took it all apart, got it running, and started riding that, and I just kind of fell in love with it. I loved that process. Fast forward a little later, bought an RD400, got that going, sold that, made some money on that, so that's kind of when the light bulb went off for a dealership type model, and I experimented with a bunch of different bikes since then, buying them, getting them running, and selling them, and it's just my favorite thing to do. I love it. It's my passion. I get to live it out every day.
Now, one of your favorite bikes to ride, and you ride it on the street and on the trail, is this BSA.
Yeah, that's a 67 BSA 441. It's set up in scrambler style. I was just riding it this past weekend up in the Sierras. I ride it all the time. It's my get-around bike for around town stuff and errands, and you can take it right off any trail you'd like, and it's a fantastic bike. I really, really enjoy this motorcycle. Runs great, starts first kick, despite the rumors on many 441s, so it's quite an enjoyable bike.
Let's get down to the starting line, and I'll tell you about what you're going to see on tonight's show. We've got a 1978 Honda CR125 in the What's It Worth segment. Unadilla Part 2 from Jeff Kokoski. Also, have you ever heard of an Ariel? You have all that and a whole lot more coming up on Vintage Motocross Q&A.
I'm Jerry Maddox.
And I'm Ryder Maddox in sunny California.
And you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, hosted by Joe Abadi.
Good evening, everyone. Just like Bill Wheeler said, I am Joe Abadi, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. There I am. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me tonight, and I hope you enjoyed the little preview that we had prior to the show beginning. If you're a fan of the show, please follow us on Facebook, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. All the help we can get is all the help we like to have, okay? So please be sure to follow us there. Now, tonight we do have some prizes, and they are, I don't want to say it now. Suze,
Yeah,
are you with me?
I am.
What do we got prizes? We got some prizes tonight?
We have prizes courtesy of Russell Waters.
Yeah.
M-Soil.
Yeah. And
nice, lot of swag he sent.
Yep. We got a lot of nice stuff and a lot of stuff that went out for last week. Susie will be back a little bit later on in the show with the winners of tonight's giveaways and trivia contests and things like that. Thanks, Suze.
You're welcome.
Okay. Now, moving on with the show. What do we have coming up right here? We have the Moto Showcase. Moto Showcase is brought to you by Preston Petty Products. Be sure to visit them online at PrestonPettyProducts.com. We have a 1979 Honda CR125 this week from Paul Delanoy. I am really, really fortunate that Paul sent in a video. So let's take a look at that.
Honda CR125. I purchased this about a year ago. It was in a dilapidated state, but it did have compression. And once I cleaned the carburetor out, it did run. I rode it about 3 laps on the track and it blew up. So at that point I decided to do a full rebuild. Sent the cylinder off to Millennium and got Nicosil cylinder, new piston and rings. We split the cases, inspected it, installed new bearings and seals. The case and the tank, the frame, the swing arm were all sent off to Condelo Customs in Phoenix for powder coating. The wheels were sent off to W to get the hubs powder coated, new spokes and Excel wheels. Purchased some shocks from Vmxq&A, all new plastic from Vmx Racing and DC Plastic, and also front fender from Preston Petty. Was fortunate when I bought the bike, it did have the DG head on it, and it did have the 78 CR250 forks with the DG style air cap. So put everything together. Also installed a larger 34 millimeter Mikuni to replace the 32 millimeter Kian, and also new seat cover and foam, and replaced the 79 side covers with the 80 side covers. Purchased the brake torque arm from Chris Elderfield, along with the chain guide, also the chain adjusters. The pipe is a Mugen replica. Also the silencer, it's a Mugen replica from Holly Equipment in Japan. Really glad how this bike turned out. Really sweet looking bike. I had this back in the day when I was a kid, raced it in 79 and 80, and it was a great bike to race. Just aren't enough people around this area to feel the class for this bike, and don't like racing against myself, so putting it up for sale. It's a beautiful bike, runs great, and I want to give a shout out to Ryan Wilson over at Factory Edge in Phoenix. Did all the motor work. Just a super mechanic, nice guy. Thank you.
All right. Great job by Paul Delanoid on that 1979 Honda CR125. And that's an excellent example of how you can make a video and send it in to me for the show too. I mean, everything Paul did there was absolutely top shelf, from the description of the bike right down to the video. So thank you, Paul. We really, really appreciate that so much. Let's get on to the next time. Try this segment. We've got a video from Oscar Robert Pomeroy tonight.
So my goal here is to increase the reliability of your fastener so it doesn't leave you high and dry in your DNF, or an axle comes loose, you throw your chain, or it could get worse than that. This particular brand, a motorcycle, just came with a regular flat nut. But it doesn't matter how much Loctite you put on the lock washer. Yeah, you can try to torque it, try to be real good with it. You don't have a guarantee this is not going to come off. Some of the models in even in 74, I know Honda did, Kawasaki did, and maybe a few other brands, they were smart enough to put a castle nut on it. And so I'm going to go through the steps of not only how we address getting the right castle nut, but how we drill it and where we drill it, which is really important because you only got one shot at it. So that's what I'm going to show you. The next step is we need to purchase the right castle nut because we're going to use it when we do our measuring. And we have to determine the thread that our axle uses. And so what we do is we're going to measure the diameter of this, around 15.7, and then you take your thread gauge and you find the sweet gauge till it lines right up with the threads. This one happens to be a 1.5, and so does this. I also measured that. So both the swing arm axle, rear axle are M16 by 1.5, and the reason I knew that 15.7 was M16, I printed out this thread chart, metric thread chart, and if I slide down to find 15.7, minimum is 15.68 to 15.9. I'm right in the middle. That's an M16 thread. So I'm going to purchase 2 M16 by 1.5 castle nuts for my project. So here I wrote down the diameters I got, the pitch, what threads, what castle nut I'll need. And there's different. You can go on Fastenal, Amazon, Auto Parts Place, you type in N16 by 1.5 castle nut, and you're going to get flange style, you're going to get shallow, you're going to get like these old school Honda ones that are really, really wide. And you're going to see when I show you how to measure on the installation, you'll see which nut you should be getting, because sometimes your axle just isn't long enough to accept the fatter or wider castle nut. Okay, so I've installed the axle, chain adjusters, the washers, everything onto my axle. I tighten my axle nut down, snug it down, and I find that this is the sweet spot. I want to be right in the middle of that. And if I didn't install it in the swing arm, you drill it in the wrong place. Either the cotter pin's too far out or too far in, you won't even get it in. Okay. And what I like to do before I drill is I take a punch like this and I just sharpen it real sharp, because I really want to, when I punch it, to go right in between the thread. I don't want to mushroom a section of thread because I'm trying to use a blunt punch. And I'm going to hit that, mark my spot, and then I'm going to drill it. Now it's time to drill for the cotter pin. Okay, so I have my little cotter pins here. This one's going to be perfect for it. This is a 1/8 cotter pin. I measure, it looks like 2.8, so a 3mm drill would be just perfect to drop that little right in there. And I'm going to get my 3mm drill out. And I'm going to use the castle. I'm going to keep the nut there because it's going to help me stay focused on going straight down. I'm not going to try to wander and touch either side of it, kind of like the game operation as a kid. And get that nice and straight for you. And we will have a secure rear axle setup that I'm not going to worry about once I build this race bike, that I'm going to have a problem with it. So I've already punched it. I'm going to go in here with the drill. And be careful to hit what that is. Okay, we've drilled through. We can blow that out, or brake cleaner, whatever you want, or whatever your preference is. Set a fire with my compressor, blow that out. And I do all this ahead of time before I go for painting and plating. I get all my race tricks in ahead of time. When I'm building the bike, I build the chassis raw and put everything the way I want it, weld whatever tabs I want to weld, do whatever I want to do, and then have it. So now on race day, once I tighten that rear axle, drop my cotter pin in there, I know that axle is going nowhere, and it's a lot better than the original setup. So next time, try that and improve the reliability of your ride.
All right, great information from Robert Oscar Pomeroy on how to drill axles and get the cotter pins in there, and that's a really, really great tip. Okay, moving on with the show. What do we got up coming up next? All right. This segment is, of course, brought to you by McCaffer Welding. And the first question is from Louis from Liberty, New York. Joe, a few of us were discussing off-road bike tire pressure, and it turned into a big debate. Some said lower pressure in sand and mud. Others argued that point. Some said that it was higher pressure, which was correct, especially on rocky trails. Can you shed some light on this? Yeah, I can. Number one, the guys who said that a softer tire and less pressure in the tire on sand and mud are correct. Okay. Other guys may see it the other way, but they're wrong. Let's go back to some basics here. Okay. What I do is I run 13 and 13. Yes, 13, 13 Mockingbird Lane is how I remember what my tire pressure should be, and I check it before the race. Now, if you are, let's say, in mud or a real muddy condition, I've seen guys run as low as 8 pounds of air in the rear tire. You have to make sure you have quality rim locks if you're going to go that low in those muddy conditions, because you do run the chance of the tire spinning on the rim or the rim spinning inside the tire. You're going to rip out the valve and your day is going to be over unless you like changing tires between races. I don't even like changing them when I'm home. Now, the other thing is today's compounds are a lot different too. Back in the old days where we didn't even really think about compound, we just thought about having the biggest tire or what the best tire was and the best traction would give us from that tire. We didn't really think about compounds. Today, you have sand tires, you have an intermediate tire in Supercross. Also on hard pack tracks, you have guys that will go with a softer compound. So that needs to be taken into consideration as well. Another good point here is a lot of guys think their traction is better with lower pressure, and it's true. In sand and in mud, they are better in those conditions. However, when you see a bent rim or a rim that has a crack in it, I would bet dollars to donuts, guaranteed the guy did not have enough pressure and he hit rocks or maybe even a big root that was on a trail. So you have to be careful with tire pressure when trail riding or in rocky conditions as well. That's going to really ruin your day. It's going to ruin your rim, and it's going to be a very, very expensive afternoon. Other than that, make sure the rim locks are in good shape, and you can experiment a little with tire pressure if you have time and practice, or maybe you have a rainy day or muddy conditions when you're home and you have a place where you practice and you want to go out there and give that a try. And but I don't know who's going to win that argument, Louis, but the guys who said the lower pressure for sand and mud are correct, but they are not correct on the rocky trails, rooted trails, things like that, or in certain conditions where things can have like a sharp edge on it. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. And something that goes along with that is this.
Hi, I'm Jeff with Motion Pro, introducing you to our latest digital tire pressure gauge today. Now, this has proven to be one of our staple products. It is trusted by race teams throughout the industry, as well as Dunlop tire techs. We'll first talk about the air gauge head, which has an auto on-off backlit display and large numbers, and so it's really easy to read even in low lighting situations. It reads 0 to 60 psi with high precision down to 0.1 psi and accuracy of plus or minus 0.6 psi. Attached to the head is our trapezoid manifold, which is billet aluminum in construction and gives a nice ergonomic feel in your hand. It also gives access to our high pressure bleeder, which was designed by Motion Pro. Now moving on, we have this long air hose, which has dual swivels, and so you can get into tight areas and still get a good read at the gauge. And at the end, now included, is our Pro air gauge chuck. It engages positively onto valve cores for extremely accurate readings. So go ahead and pick one up for yourself today. It's available from dealers nationwide.
Hi, I'm Al Roof, the other lumberjack, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A.
and McCaffer Welding. Moving on with the show. Oh, I know what I want to mention. I want to mention Russell Waters. You want to buy oil direct at a discount, go to theoilpeople.shopamsoil.com. Right now, you can get Dominator 2-stroke oil, regularly $81, now just $59.75. Thank you, Russell Waters and AMSOIL products, okay? It's my favorite time of the show. All right, it is trivia, and don't forget, it is a call-in contest. So call in only, 925-784-2195. Do not answer in the comment section, please. Give everybody else an even chance. Let them call in, 925-784-2195. This is probably one of the last 2 weeks I'm giving away these Racer X posters with Jimmy Weiner and Tony DeStefano. We're just about out of them. This week is going to go, and maybe next week, or maybe next week we'll do something else, and then only 1 week after that, okay? So put on your thinking caps. If you guys know your Harley 250 MX trivia, riddle me this. Harley came out with a bike in 1975, the prototype Harley, the one with the forks on the back. It was only 75 of them made. Each dealer got one. Almost every dealer got one, not every. So there were about 75 of those. In 77, they came out with the production bike, 77 and 78. What I want you to tell me is what brand tires were on the 75, what brand tires were on the 78? You know, it's two different tires. Now I'm going to tell you this, and it's not even a good clue. The bikes were made in Italy at the time. It's like the best clue, and yet it's not a good clue. Okay, so you think about that. I'll put up the question one more time. 75, prototype Harley on the left, the production bike 77, 78 on the right. What brand tires were on the 75? What brand tires were on the 1977? Let's get down to Dave Cash. All right, I was having a conversation the other day about some bikes that were very, very special, things that had different engines in them or aftermarket frames, and it made me think about this video that I got from Dave. It was quite a while ago, but let's take a look at it, and it even threw me for a loop when I first started watching it. Check this out.
Here's a bike that dates back to virtually when the CZ Championship started in the early 80s, and this is a reed valve center port 72 CZ 400 motor put into a 73 Mako chassis with CZ wheels, tall seat. I put the 78 tank on it. One of the trick little mods though, if you look down here, you see the foot pegs, how they're mounted. I actually back in 70 and 71 had made this bracket in Auto Shop and moved my pegs back, using the rear bolt as the front bolt and then drilling through that plate to move them back. And everybody thought I was kind of crazy, but I had small feet and I thought it handled better when I was standing up. This has a Thor arm, Kernut shocks, CZ wheels. Boy, there's a slicer of a brake pedal for sure. But this is a bike that would have run in the third year of the CZ Championships. And this bike was built by the founder of the CZ Championships. You're thinking Rick Neighbors? No, Jim Keaton. This was Jim Keaton's cheater bike, as usual. It doesn't have vintage legal forks on it. He just covered them up with those boots, and this is where he got his nickname Cheatin' Keaton. Go figure. Metzler tire on the front. If you rode saddleback, that was your choice. Looks like she's got a sun rim on the front. And that's an original CZ rim on the back, the way the dimples are not in line down here. You see these right here and how they're not in line and they're offset. That is the sign of the CZ rim right there. And he was the CZ guy. He loved them Kernut shocks. I'm not kidding. When I took the seat off the bike, on the frame right here is a Playboy centerfold with resin over it. And back in those days, we used to resin pictures onto old spools, make a tabletop out of them. And a Playboy bunny fold-out girl was kind of like every guy's little dream back then, especially when we were younger. It's got the same set of tires he ran in saddleback. That was a perfect tire for saddleback when it got dry right there. But a little bit of history with this motorcycle. Kind of special. You put a compression release in it to aid it and start it, and a little later someone put that modern Keaton Keehan, and this is where he got his nickname Cheatin' Keaton. He was always running shit that didn't really belong on the bike. But see how the exhaust port had been moved over and re-welded in there so it would fit in the Mako frame. South Bay did that. A few of the guys were doing those mods to make center ports. Wayne Boyer and Tripes, those guys in San Diego had some. There's a bunch around LA that had them too. But this was Cheatin' Keaton's cheater bike. There you go.
I really had to take a double take at that bike when I first looked at it. I mean, the 79 Mako tank really caught me off guard. Okay, great stuff from Dave Boynton. Susie still has not come in with the phone to tell me, or to have someone on the other end who's going to tell me what the trivia question was. If you missed it, I'll do it one more time. 1975, Harley-Davidson came out with the prototype Harley-Davidson 250MX. 1977-78, they came out with the production bike. There were different tire brands on these bikes. They were made in Italy at the time. Can you tell me what brand of tires were on the 75 and what brand of tires were on the 77? Okay, it is a call-in contest, so be sure to call 925-784-2195. All right, in the What's It Worth segment tonight, we've got a 1978 Honda CR125. This is, of course, the segment of the show where you, the viewers at home, guess how much you think this bike recently sold for. I've got a little slideshow put together here. We'll take a look at it as I read to you the details. Put your comments, your price comments, in the comment section, and we'll take a look at it in a little bit, see who gets closest without going over, okay? 1978 Honda CR125 Elsinore was acquired by the seller in 2017, reportedly from the second owner. Subsequent work included the honing of the cylinder and installing a replacement piston and rings in the 123cc two-stroke single, along with replacing the cross-braced handlebar and front number plate. Shifting is through a 6-speed transmission, and the bike is finished in Tahitian red with a matching frame. Details included are an expansion chamber, exhaust system, a Kickstarter, a key and carburetor, black vinyl solo seat, side number plates, high-mounted composite fenders, wire wheel, spoke wheels, and did alloy rims with a side stand. CR125 is now offered at no reserve with an owner's manual, a spark arrestor, and the off-road washed-in title in the seller's name. Details include a side stand, serrated folded foot pegs, side number plates, and high-mounted fenders. Seller notes the front number plate is a replacement unit. There is a repair to the vinyl solo seat, a scrape on the left side of the gas tank as well. The wire spoke wheels are 21-inch and 18-inch did alloy rims. They are mounted with a mixed set of tires, a Bridgestone up front, which does appear original to me, as well as a Dunlop out back. Suspension consists of a leading axle telescopic fork with painted lowers and red gaiters, as well as preload adjustable shocks mounted to the swing arm. So when I first looked at it, I thought to myself, the bike is incredibly original. It didn't appear to me that the bike had ever been apart. I didn't really notice the tire difference until the seller had mentioned it in a very, very forthcoming description of the bike. Also, hats off to whoever did this job, because they really took the time, and you could see where the seat was off the bike or they showed the underside of the gas tank. It's well detailed, and they took great care in not really altering the finish of anything when they detailed the bike. It looked very, very original to me. So you guess how much you think that bike recently sold for, and we'll tell you about it in just a minute. I've got 4,500, 3,700, 4,600, 3,875, 5,100, 3,300. This bike actually sold for, and I got it right here. No, that's not it. What did I do with it? I swear I had it here. I think the bike sold for $4,550. $4,550 is what the bike sold for. And I'm going to double check that in when we're doing a commercial. Okay, we'll double check that and we'll find out exactly who the winner was and who got closest and who's going to get something tonight. All right, we'll be right back after this message.
I'm Brock Glover, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, and we'll be right back.
I get asked often, what's the most important thing on Clunker? The answer's simple, it's me. That's why I use Full Circle Racing wheels prepped by Tom McAllister. So should you. Watch this and learn why. When racing vintage motocross where suspension is very limited, your wheels can be the difference between winning or serious injury. We chose to run Full Circle racing wheels because of the super high quality materials and the heavy duty spokes used. Prepped by Tom McAllister, I have the confidence on the track to push way harder through the rough stuff and the bigger jumps, knowing my wheels are going to stay under me. Hey, Clunker may be 50 years old, but his wheels are brand new, and yours should be too. Call Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing today.
All right, we've got Susie back with us. She's going to give us the viewer appreciation winner for tonight. Suze, what do you got? There you are.
Well, the funny thing is, I picked someone,
Yeah.
and then that same someone won the What's It Worth.
Oh.
So, yeah. So that same someone, I'm going to give you the name. So
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. Don't give me the name of the someone. I shouldn't say that. Let's put it this way. I haven't confirmed the value of the bike yet. I'm in the process of doing that during these commercials. My fingers are on fire over here getting that information. Now, when I get that, we'll find out who the real winner is, because you don't really know that yet. I said 4,500, but I'm not really sure. So viewer appreciation right now is.
Well, is it that same someone?
Just tell me who the viewer appreciation winner is, and then we'll see what the price of the bike was.
Scott Killiam.
Scott Killiam. Okay.
Scott Killiam.
Okay, Scott Killiam, you are tonight's viewer appreciation winner. You're going to get something nice from Amsoil. And once I confirm the price of the bike, and I'll do that before the end of the show, we will find out if you are also the.
Well, he did say 4,500 on the dot
in the comment.
He said,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And if there's somebody else, we'll give away 2 prizes. Okay.
Okay.
Let's just do that. In the meantime, we need to move on with the Did You Know segment. All right. The Did You Know segment. Yeah. Well, the Did You Know segment is brought to you by ARMA. Be sure to visit them online at arma.org. Last week, we were talking about Unadilla, of course, probably the most famous track in the world. And the Did You Know segment tonight, we bring you part 2 from Jeff Kokoski and Did You Know? Last week, we talked about how Ward Robinson developed the motocross track Unadilla MX in upstate New York from a humble beginning in the late 60s and how its popularity grew through the 1970s. The layout of the track using hillside and Unadilla River Valley mimicked the elevation changes and roughness of the terrain similar to European tracks, making it a perfect draw for the Trans AMA series that pitted the best motocross racers from across the Atlantic against the newcomers in the US. So this week, we'll continue with part 2. Did you know the story of Unadilla? During the decade of the 1970s, US 250 national MX racers were only held a handful of times at Unadilla, then paused until 1989, but has continued every year since, and then except for 1992 and a bizarre year of COVID in 2020. However, the 500cc Trans AMA series and its brief successor, the Trans USA series, came to Unadilla each fall until 1982, when the series finally ended. Those racers showcased the epic battles between the European motocross masters, and they ended up coming to America and were trying to overtake them. In particular, it would be a bar-banging clashes between 5-time world champion Roger DeCoster and a brash Californian named Bob Hanna that would really put the Unadilla race on the motocross map. Unadilla fans embraced both of these great racers, and the 2 rivals responded by putting on some of the most epic duels ever. But it would be DeCoster that prevailed as the king of Unadilla, where he got the overall win an unprecedented 5 times, while Hanna was shut out and never got a 500cc win there. Nonetheless, the raucous New York fans loved Hanna's out-of-control, feet-off-the-pegs style of riding. Now, beginning in 1973, the 500cc USGP was held there in Carlsbad in Southern California. 2 years later, the first 125cc USGP debuted in mid-Ohio. And then In 1978, the third USGP was introduced, this time for the 250 class, and it would be on July 30th of that year at Unadilla. In the first moto, Honda mounted Jimmy Ellis won, while his teammate, Marty Tripes, ended up in second. Near the start, Bob Hanna broke the backing plate on his front hub and spent the moto fighting with the European riders way back in 20th place. However, fans cheered him, and ultimately he took 5th place. Not bad considering he was riding those hills and off-camber turns of Unadilla with no front brake. In the second moto, Hanna started 7th and blitzed his way past the Europeans, as well as Ellis and Tripes to win the moto. The Hurricane had finally got a moto victory at Unadilla, but due to his consistent riding, Marty Tripes would get the overall at the very first 250 GP at Unadilla. Much to his dismay and to Hanna's fans, Hanna was jinxed that Unadilla would continue. And the USGP in 1985, Hanna, now Honda mounted, would crash and bash his way to the front past his teammate and newcomer Johnny O'Mara, scoring another moto win. But in the second moto, Hanna crashed and broke his clutch lever. He charged through the pack with no clutch, but could only get to 5th with the O-Show, would get the overall. As Hanna's career was winding down, it made one final bike switch to Suzuki, and his Unadilla jinx was finally broken in the 250 GP in 1986. After a bad start in the first moto, he fought his way, and he once again got back up behind O'Mara. In the second moto, both Hanna and O'Mara got good starts at the front. They would battle back and forth, trading places the entire moto. Near the end of the moto, O'Mara had passed Hanna, and the Hurricane began to fade. It looked like the O-Show was going to pull out another Unadilla win. However, on the very last lap, O'Mara began to slow down and eventually stopped as he had run out of fuel. A bewildered Hanna passed him and inherited the win for his first overall Unadilla. Being a good sport, O'Mara would hand Hanna his RC Honda gas tank on the podium. The 250cc GP races would continue at Unadilla from 1978 until 1992 before moving to Budge Creek for a few years in the 1990s. Factory Honda rider Jeff Stanton would win the last 3 250 GPs at Unadilla. Here's a great picture of Hanna right there. But the most notable jewel at Unadilla, as far as a crown goes, came on September 17th, 1987 for the first time in the storied history of the Motocross des Nations. And that was like the Olympic of motocross, as we all know. The event would be held outside of Europe. The U.S. team had won the Vmxq des Nations, and in 6 years in a row, the American motocrossers had finally garnered enough to respect the host to host the race. Unadilla was selected as the event site because of its ongoing 250 GP wins, 250 GP races, and that European track era. The U.S. team was selected for 1987 event, but not without controversy. Though Team Honda's Ricky Johnson had won both the 500cc and 250 U.S. national championships that year, so he was a shoo-in for one of the spots. He would ride the 250 class. Johnson's rival, Kawasaki-mounted Jeff Ward, was starting to make a mark in the 500cc class. Where was I? Yeah, Ward was starting to make his move in the 500cc class, and so he would represent Team USA in the big bore class as well. However, it was the 125 selection that caused quite a stir. Honda's Mickey Diamond had won the 125cc national championship in 1986 and repeated in 1987. Diamond assumed that he would be on the Motocross des Nations team since Roger DeCosta was the manager for both the factory Honda and the U.S. Motocross des Nations team. However, DeCosta selected Hanna to ride the 125 class, even though Hanna had not competed on a quarter-liter bike for almost 10 years, and Hanna was pretty much past his racing prime at that point. But Hanna's story with Unadilla, his familiarity with the track, Mickey Diamond had never raced there, Hanna's personal ties with Ward Robinson, and the fact he was sentimental fan favorite made DeCosta pick him over Mickey Diamond. And the Motocross des Nations win was the sole major title missing in Hanna's celebrated career. So he was intensely driven to silence the critics who argued against the selection. In hindsight, it would be a genius move by Roger DeCosta. And that's where we saw these pants just a moment ago. Unfortunately, whatever home track advantage the Americans might have, it it was just an incredible weather, and things really took a change due to Mother Nature. The fall weather can be unpredictable, and upstate New York in 1987 was no exception. On the other hand, you might have had a beautiful Indian summer sunshine day with clear skies and comfortable temperatures, but it didn't happen that way in 87. The weather on Saturday, September 12th, the day before the Motocross the Nations event, was comfortable. Track conditions were perfect, and the Americans were on their way to capture number 7 Chamberlain Trophy in a row. Now, that morning of the race, heavy downpours would turn to iconic Unadilla track into a slippery quagmire, making the off-camber turns and steep hills extremely difficult. It was not impossible, just about impossible to navigate. Whatever home track advantage the U.S. team had, the European riders all of a sudden became heavily favored due to their long collective experience dealing with mud and competing on the European continent. The first moto of the day featured a combined 125-500 machine. Bob Hanna failed twice to climb the impassable steep slope at the bottom of Screw You, but it was Hanna's never say die, hang it all out on the track style. He clawed his way back from last place all the way to 9th. The 125-500 combined finish and 4th in the 125 class. Meanwhile, in the 500cc class, Jeff Ward was running up front, couldn't use his goggles with the slop from the first lap. He finished a respectable 3rd place, but it was not looking good for Team USA. Both Belgium and Holland were tied for 1st place. The Americans were back in 2nd. However, things turned around in the second moto, which contained the 125-250 bike. Superstar Ricky Johnson got a decent start on the 250, worked his way through the front, fended off the Europeans, and got the overall win. And I think we see some of those pictures right here. But Hanna vindicated himself from the earlier showing by grabbing a top 10 start, then amazingly worked his way back to the 250 bike in the mud to get 3rd place overall, 1st in the 125. Team USA now tied with Belgium for 1st place, making the 3rd and final 250-500 moto crucial. In that race, both RJ and Ward fought for the whole shot, but Ward backed off and let Johnson by. Had his been a U.S. national, that would have never happened. Johnson would secure another overall win, and Ward got another 3rd place. In the end, Team USA kept the Motocross the Nations win streak alive by beating out the Dutch by 2 points, and the Belgians, who finished 3rd, by just 4 points. The win on the American soil was such a big deal that Johnson, Ward, and Hanna, along with team manager Roger DeCoster, were all invited to the White House. Got a great picture of that right here. They met with President Reagan, the first and only time a motocross team had been invited to meet with a president. Through the years, Unadilla remained a special place in American motocross. Not long ago, the Robinsons would allow the grass to continue growing, and the hills were added, and they were a bit of a mystery to the track. It hid the underlying rocks and stones and made for some interesting tire selections between practice and the motos. And what about the rocks? In 1994, factory Kawasaki rider Mike Adraki was one to possibly repeating as the U.S. 250 MX national champion when a rock from a rider's roost broke a couple of his knuckles and fingers during practice at Unadilla that day. He was out for the rest of the season. Rather than tempting fate, racers also routinely wore heavier chest protectors and nose guards when they raced Unadilla. Ward Robinson had passed away in 2022. He was one of the last remaining early motocross promoters who did not get into the sport for the money, but to feed the camaraderie and competitive nature of the racers. Fortunately, Robinson's son, Greg, and daughter, Jill, have taken over the family's racing business and still manage that track today. Much to the delight of the AMA officials, pretty much gone are the days of extreme hooliganism and drunkenness from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, where shouts from the other side sucks to floating and flaming couches across the watering ponds and long-distance water balloon battles using surgical tubing and women's bras from the drunken pit tootsies, all too eager to hand over their garments. Gone, too, are the knee-high natural terrain tracks, and as well as so many other things that we all remember at Unadilla. But as Hunter Lawrence unfortunately found out at the National last week, what sets Unadilla apart from most American motocross tracks is its status and its pure natural terrain course. And that is one thing, hopefully, that never gets changed at Unadilla. Jeff Kokoski with another brilliant segment of Did You Know? And still nobody coming in with the answer to the trivia contest. And I think I'm going to give it to you one more time. We got it right here. Okay, we're talking about the 1975 prototype Harley Davidson. That's on the left, and the 1977-78 production bikes. They both came with different brand tires. What brand tires came on the 1975? What brand came on the 77? They were made in Italy, but it wasn't Pirelli. Italy is close to France, but it wasn't Michelin. How many more clues can your Uncle Joe give you? All right, let's move on with the show. Next up, we have, we have next, we have me taking a rest.
I'm Donnie Hanson. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paul Parkinson with Replica Motorcycle Parts. I'm sitting here with our test bike, which is ridden by Jerry Maddox. Here's the #1 plate in the US. Let's go over a couple of the parts that we've got on here. We've got our ignition cover with the case saver built into it, so that when the chain comes off, you're not damaging your cases. Spacer, foot pegs. Jerry runs our air box. Seat brackets, keeps the seat on tight so he doesn't fall off when he's going over the whoops. And then this side, Jerry runs a couple little things, a lot of little rubber parts on the bike and stuff are all done by us. And then down here we've got our brake pedal, which has got needle bearings in there, and then it's got a wider toe peg so it gives them a real nice, clean, easy to use brake. And then this is our latest part. This is a CR250 type knuckle. In fact, Honda used them on the last versions of the MR175, and this is a real trick aluminum Kickstarter arm. So that gives them lightweight, strength, and reliability more than anything else.
All right, be sure to visit replicamotorcycleparts.com online. Paul Parkinson always doing a great job with so many different parts for so many different bikes, from CZs to Hondas to Makos, even some specialty parts from Mugens and Kawasaki CZs, just a little bit of everything. Now, a bit ago, I did promise you that I would go, and believe me, you should see the juggling that goes on here when I'm doing this show. And I wanted to find out how much that bike recently sold for. I said $4,500. The bike sold for $4,550. I think I said that. Now, there was a $455 buyer premium, so $4,900. Let's call it $5,000. All right, let's call it $5,000. I'm going to go back to the comments. I got 5,200. I got 5,100. I've got 10.9 from Bob's to Scavenge. Scavenge has got a lot of money though. Anyway. That's what I'm seeing. I'm thinking right now, by the way it looks, I just saw 4,200. And it looks like that is the most, 4,500, Scott Killiam. So it is 5,000. Oh, wait a minute. Phil Liberty, 49.66. 49.66 from Phil Liberty. Okay. So Scott Killiam, you are this week's viewer appreciation winner. You will get something from Amsoil. And Phil Liberty at, 5,000 I said. 5,000. You're at 49.66. Phil Liberty. I think I have your address. All right. So that's who the winner is. And one more time, if you didn't see it, I brought it up here on the screen. The actual price was $4,550 plus the buyer's premium, brings it in right at about $5,000. So that's where we're at. Okay. Congratulations to Phil Liberty. Congratulations to Scott Killiam as well. All right. Moving on with Vintage Motocross Q&A. All right. Have you ever heard of a Ariel? You ever heard of an Ariel? Well, I'm going to tell you about it right now. Ariel Motorcycles was a British maker of bicycles, then motorcycles in Burbank, Birmingham. It was an innovator in British motorcycling, part of the Ariel mark. The company was sold to BSA in 1951, but the brand survived until 1967. Influential Ariel designers included Val Page and Edward Turner. The last motorcycle type vehicle to carry the Ariel name was a short-lived three-wheel tilting moped in 1970. Ariel made bicycles before making motorcycles, and it even made cars. Car production began in 1902 and it moved to Coventry in 1911, ceased in 1925. The Ariel name was reused in 1999 for the formation of Ariel Motor Company, which was a sports car producer. The original company was established in 1870 by James Starley and William Hillman. They built wire spoke wheels under the first British patent Ariel, which means spirit of the air. In 1902, Ariel produced its first motorcycle, which had carry engine in it with a magneto ignition and a floated carburetor. That year, the Ariel was taken over by Components Limited owner Charles Sangster. Sangster built a 3-speed 2-stroke motorcycle, sold it as the Arielette, but he stopped production on the outbreak of World War I. 1918, Sangster's son, Jack, began managing the Ariel division, and he was pretty competent, Jack was, and he went on to continue making the successful motorcycles that they were. They had one, even had a 4 horsepower with a White and Pope engine in it. Jack increased the range of motorcycles to include a 586cc and a 992cc machine, a range of motorcycle that was made until 1926 with engines brought in and assembled from other designers, such as Val Page, who joined Ariel from the Jap company. Components Limited suffered a severe financial loss and the crisis and went into receivership in 1911 and in the early 30s. In 1932, Components Limited went bankrupt. Sangster, son, bought Ariel for a bargain price. The Ariel Square 4 with a 500cc engine designed by Edward Turner was launched in 1931 season. The Square 4 established was to increase to 600 cc's. In 51, Sangler stole Ariel to Triumph. In 59, Ariel dropped its 4-stroke engine to produce the Ariel Leader, a fully enclosed 250cc 2-stroke with fully faired body and a headlamp. Ariel then made the Arrow, a more open version of the Leader, which kept the Leader's enclosed chain case and deep mud guards. Both models were an unsuccessful attempt to compete with the new Japanese bikes. In 1965, Ariel produced its last motorcycle, the Arrow 200, with capacity reduced to 200 cc's. And earlier, during the 64, to qualify for the lower UK rider insurance, Ariel motorcycles ceased to exist in 1967. Very, very interesting story about the Ariel. Yes, they had a motocross bike too, but they tried a lot of different things over there. And a company that really had some longevity when you think about it, from the late 1800s all the way up until 1967. And actually was the victim of 2 world wars, okay, with World War I and World War II. Interesting story, I think. All right, today in motocross history is brought to you by Racer X. And it was 1973, and we were coming down to the final round of the World Championship between Aki Janssen, Roger de Coster, and Håkan Andersson. It's the final round of the FIM 500cc Motocross World Championship, and it was in St. Anthonis in the Netherlands. And for the second time in as many races, Sweden's Aki Janssen was the winner. Still, it was the end of a very frustrating season for Janssen, who was considered to be the heavy favorite dominating the 72 Trans Am Series aboard of Mako. But for 73, Aki switched to Yamaha and was so unhappy with its handling and the new monoshock that he actually put on Mako forks at one point, leading many people to call it the Yamako. Suzuki's Roger de Coster would take full advantage and win his 3rd straight world title, while Janssen only 4th in the final standing behind Mako rider Willie Bauer and his Yamaha teammate Jack van Veldhoven. Things were different for the Yamaha rider in the 250 class. Håkan Andersson swept both motos in Sweden to clinch a 250cc World Championship that year on what was a 250cc Yamaha with the monoshock. He happened to love it. He thought it was absolutely a fantastic bike. And of course, Yamaha went on in history with that YZ monoshock. And then, of course, the OW factory bikes. And that's what happened today in motocross history. The announcements are brought to you by Outer Limits. Thank you, Outer Limits Productions, Mike McCook, Steve Smith, Sherry Jennings, and Matt Lewis as well. They've been helping us out quite a bit here at Vintage Motocross Q&A with sound, with lighting, and with the technical end of things that we now seem to have a bit of control over. But we will be hearing more from Outer Limits Production in the very, very near future. Announcements. Oh, we got a Vintage Day at the Ranch coming up in Jessup, New York. That happens on September 12th. They've got pedal e-bikes, vintage off-road bikes, 90s and older. There's a swap meet trials. There's a grass track there and a whole lot more going on up there in Warwick, New York. We've got Warren Reed, Barry Higgins, and Martina Foltova-Cope, along with some others, going to the Moto Barn event that happens on Saturday, October 24th at 10 a.m. to 4. There is free food and drink, and everyone is invited. That is, of course, put on by George Ackerman, a wonderful host. Still some racing going on at ARMA, Potomac Vintage Riders. Some great fall races coming up in September with the Zor Motocross Park, and a big event that I'm happy is coming back this year. They didn't have one last year. The bike show at Langston that happens October 24th. So if you're on the West Coast, it's free to public. It's a wonderful time. There's food, there's music, and there are quite a bit of show bikes. I mean, bikes like you have never seen in Southern California. All right. Gary Court shows up with a bunch of Makos. There's always some legendary motocrossers showing up there as well. I've seen Gary Jones there, Rex Staten, Brad Lackey, and so many more. And of course, January 24th, we've got the York Swap Meet happening in York, Pennsylvania. Be sure to make your reservations at the hotels there. And if you want to get a booth, do it soon. All right. I will be getting, from what I told, I will be getting the flyer next week. They get started real early there. Bill Nazelrod and the guys put on a great event, and they get started really early. They start advertising early, and they sell out vendor spaces really very early too. Here's a wonderful event coming up at Albany MX. That's in Albany, Oregon. Okay, this is a race for the cure, and that happens on September 5th and 6th. They've got a whole shot competition. They've got a race day. They've got an open practice, and so much more happening up there. Jeff Conboy almost sold out of books. So I'm telling you guys, if you want the book, now's the time. There's only a handful of them left. Get a hold of Jeff Conboy on Facebook, $79. I think he's got one of the Pomeroy books left too. You're never going to see him again. All right. So get a hold of Jeff Conboy and get yourself a book. If you want to get yourself a t-shirt, a hoodie, a sweatshirt, they come in all colors and sizes. Prices start at just $24.95. We got hats there in black, just $22. Shipping included. You can use PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. Okay. I think that wraps it up for this week's Vintage Motocross Q&A. I want to thank everybody who watched the show tonight. Congratulations to Scott Killiam. Congratulations to Phil Liberty as well. And nobody got the trivia contest, did they? Nobody got the trivia contest. And you know what I'm going to do about that? Well, I'm not going to give away a prize, but I'll show you the question one more time. What brand of tires were on the 75 prototype Harley-Davidson MX, and what brand were on the 77? Yokohama Super Diggers on the 75. And then they went to the least expensive, probably least liked tire in motocross at the time, Cheng Shins. I remember when I was restoring two of these bikes and it got down to the end and I was getting ready to buy tires and I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is going to be an expensive proposition. I restored two at the same time. And tires, I guess at the time, I don't know whether they were Dunlops or Trouble, whatever tire it was that I thought would be on the bike, I figured they had to be 125, 150 a piece, and I had to go out and buy 4 tires. To my joy, I found out that they were Cheng Shins, and I had the correct tires on the bike, and that was that. So this is one of the very few weeks that we do not have a winner at the trivia contest at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Well, we will be back next week, and we'll give you another shot at that. In the meantime, thank you everyone who watched the show. Thank you, Susie. Thank you to the new sponsor, Outer Limits Productions, and all of you at home. We'll see you next time on Vintage Motocross Q&A.
Bye.